Welcome to Busted Speakers. I'm Kush,
And I'm Alex.
and today
There's nobody who's listening to this will think anything should be funny there, but clearly we're having a good time.
okay, and today we're reviewing "Triplicate" by Bob Dylan. So, if you don't know who Bob Dylan is at this point, then you should probably search him up yourself because he's the most prolific folk artist I would say of all time. Would you?
Arguably just one of the most prolific, well-known musicians ever. Like when you think about musicians that never stopped from at any point, there's him, there's the Rolling Stones, and there's not many others. Maybe a few, like
Leonard Cohen.
or his untimely death stopped for 10 years before coming back with the next day. Bob Dylan has never stopped.
So yeah,
For
Bob
over
Bob
50 years, coming on 55 years.
he's 75 years old and he just keeps on singing. Um, So he really it depends on like the year you pick him up. He was a folk singer. He was a country singer. He was a crooner. Uh, he went back to folk at
Tried
one
to be
point.
synth pop in the 80s. That's good.
He went back to folk after a while, but it really just depends on what side you pick him up. And so me and Bob Dylan go back a long way. My grandfather had this collection of a whole bunch of different albums that he picked up from garage sales, and I don't think he listened to any of them, but he just had them. And
Right.
one of the albums he had was "The Times They Are a Changin'" by Bob Dylan, and I would say that's one of my favorite Bob Dylan albums to date. Uh,
That's really good.
I don't know why, I just really fell in love with that when I first listened to it, and I just really enjoyed it throughout my whole upbringing. Anyways, my point being that I have a soft spot for Bob Dylan, as most music fans do. Um, this album is his attempt at more swing. What would you describe it as? Swing music?
It's like standards, which is basically what. Here's the thing: these were pop back when they came out in the 40s, 50s. I don't think any song on here actually dates to the 60s, so these are really old songs. But these are called standards now because they've become known as the standard for good songwriting in pop music. Some will say that no one's ever topped these, some like old traditionalists. So he's done this before on 2015 and 16, the albums Shadows in the Night and Fallen Angels. So this is actually albums 3 to 5, a triple album set. It's nothing new, but it's Bob, so we love him anyway.
Um,
Yeah,
so
history with Bob Dylan.
I'm not sure
Or
what
are you not done? Sorry.
no, I'm just not sure what to think about Bob Dylan because I think I love the man. I think he's a fantastic musician. I just don't see why he gets so much hate, especially on this album. But if you want to, yeah, go. You can talk about your Bob Dylan experience too.
Well, it's because people don't listen to Bob Dylan for this, but people are forgetting he's made loads of covers albums. His 1962 debut, Bob Dylan, was basically traditional folk from years and years ago, but everyone loves it because it's the Bob Dylan style. Self Portrait had a load of covers. Dylan in 1973. Then he made some more folk covers in the 90s. World Gone Wrong and Good as I've Been to You. These album titles because I've not listened to them in a while. And in 2009, he made a Christmas album called Christmas in the Heart. So he's always made weird stuff. And this is like the third helping of standards that he's had. So he can make great original music. This is not what they want, but I love Bob Dylan, and this is just one thing you can't say about Bob Dylan is that he's predictable. A lot of people probably weren't thinking he'd make 3 more albums of this. Like, no, I did not think that. I thought Fallen Angels would be the last of it, but here we are. Load more.
So for me, my biggest. So I'm gonna go straight up with the complaints about this album.
Okay.
Bob Dylan still has a wonderful voice with his raspy, more almost like just abrasive voice, which is Bob Dylan was never the greatest singer, I don't think he ever tried to be the best singer ever.
The weird thing is that he got really, really solid randomly in the late 70s when he was doing all the uh, gospel Christian rock albums. Best male vocals for Gotta Serve Somebody. You'd never think he'd win a Grammy for best male vocalist, but he did in 1979.
And
God, he started to get really bad vocally, really raspy and croaky. But I personally think, in the standards, they're a really good vocal exercise for Bob. He sounds better than he has for decades, I'd say, doing these songs.
I think I like his raspy voice. I think it really does add just a bit more personality, a bit more vibrancy to it. And I think
Right.
they really fit well with this. I know like a lot of these songs would have been nicer with like a smoother Frank Sinatra voice or whatnot, but I think he pulls it off with his more raspy voice, and I think it does sound really good. My problem is that he is old now. He is 75 years old, and he's tired, and the poor man needs to sleep, take a nap, because he cannot hit those high notes. He really can't, and he tries, and it just comes off as a little abrasive. But you can't expect him to do what he used to do. He is old now, but he's still just a fantastic musician, I think.
He is, if he tried this album 10 years ago, it would be much worse than this. I think his vocals have gotten really. There are points on this album where he actually sounds like the Bob Dylan of the 60s and 70s again. Like, almost, it's a real. It's to me, because I never thought he'd sound like this again. Like, it evokes such surreal images in my mind, because even though I love his 90s and 2000s albums for the most part, his voice is just. I just recall back to the 60s where he sounds so youthful and energetic, and I know he's not clinically perfect, but the albums and man, so yeah, basically, I think he's actually gone better by doing these standards, I'd say.
Yeah. The only other complaint was the length. It was 1.5 hours long. Um, and a lot of these songs are very samey, just very acoustic and horn section heavy songs that, with his vocal styles, was very samey. So it did feel much longer than it should have. But I'm not gonna complain. It was still a good album.
The problem people have is obviously mainly the length, and because this is more of the same from Bob, no one wants that. Novelty of this used to be that Bob Dylan was a really croaky vocalist, and you'd only get pitch perfect, clinically perfect vocalists like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and more recently like Michael Bublé and such to sing these type of songs. So getting like an imperfect, gravelly vocalist like Bob is kind of unique, I'd say, because you wouldn't listen to a vocalist like Bob singing these, but because it's Bob, we love him. We love. We give this stuff a chance anyway.
I don't know. I think this album is much. People perceive it much worse just because of the length. It's not that
Yeah.
bad of an album. Some of the highlights on this is there for me at least. Actually, most of these songs were really good. I can't really complain about any specific song. There are portions of some song that I didn't enjoy just because of like I said, the high pitched vocals. But for the most part, they all are pretty equal in terms of quality level. They're all pretty.
There's one song that I didn't like, but it's because I thought it was a very, very boring song to begin with. P.S. I Love You. It's too long and a bit basic and boring, too slow, and I don't know. Here's the thing. I agree. The quality level is consistent. It shouldn't be any worse, but I just think because I didn't like the song to begin with, I didn't like that. Like, I've heard some bad versions of that in my time.
I didn't like the song "Sentimental Journey."
There's a weird story for me behind that, but go on.
I just felt like the song had not much substance, and it was like weirdly really odd for him. Like it didn't fit the style of any of the albums on here, and it's supposed to be more smooth and sexy, and it doesn't work out, and it sounds just very slow, and it doesn't flow, and that song was just didn't. It was not one of the better cuts on this album.
this song is intensely pointless for me, and I wrote this in a lot of these because I wrote like Frank Sinatra did this better, Billie Holiday did this better, stuff like that, which is kind of pointless because you're not gonna like Stardust that said Willie Nelson did better. Here's an odd thing: I think Ringo Starr does a better version of this. On his debut album, Sentimental Journey, is exactly the same as this. It's him doing standards. And this, Ringo, he does it better. And Beatles sound, handing over it. This one, I don't know, that one sounded more like a pop song. This sounds really slow and hokey, like you say. I don't know. I didn't mind it. It's just, I'm never going to listen to this over the Ringo version.
Yeah, my favorite songs on here, though, September of My Years is really good. My One and Only Love, As Time Goes By.
Oh, My One and Only Love, oh man, I love that song.
As Time Goes By, The Best Is Yet to Come, I Couldn't Sleep a Wink Last Night. I don't know, a lot of these songs had very similar in quality level, just some of them stood out because they were either more slow and his raspy vocals could fill up the space really well and they felt very immersive. But Bob Dylan, he makes good music. You can't really knock him for that.
Yeah. You seem to like a lot of the reflective late night, like regret over a lost lover, something like that type songs.
I didn't even notice that, but yeah, I'm a depressed man. What do you expect?
That's all the ones you noted out. Like I couldn't sleep a wink last night. September of My Years is like a really depressing song talking about like he's really old now. And My One and Only, I think that one's actually kind of, I love that song because I think it has one of the best melodies of any standard. It's so good, that song. Great melodic sense. Some of these songs I find hard to explain why I love them so much. Because in essence, they all have the same idea. Like, they're all written quite similarly. Obviously not lyrically, but I mean musically, there wasn't that much of a... Apart from, like, there weren't that many genres. Like, you couldn't lift from EDM or trap in those days, so these songs should sound really similar, but some of them have such great melodies that I just can't believe how great some of these are more than others.
I mean, I think people are hating on it for no reason. I don't really understand.
Well,
The immense amount. I understand like it's based on the length, and this is not what they wanted from. They want Bob Dylan to do his folk music or his country music or whatever. But I think it's a good change of
12
pace.
was the yeah. Well, it's not a change of pace. He's done this twice before.
Well, I think it's a good, different song.
Yeah. Well, this is the first time you've heard him doing this type of thing, so
Yes.
it's a good change of pace for you.
I haven't heard the other albums.
Well, properly new original Bob Dylan thing was in 2012. I remember it come out. Tempest. It's just because people feel like it's not because he's old, like he may as well do these because he can't make good songs anymore. People think that he has some of the best songs ever written still in his like notebooks at home that he hasn't shown anyone. So I think there's a level of that coming in.
Yeah, I think the fact that it was a covers album made people more upset, but
as
I'm
you
okay
know,
with it.
Busted Speakers love cover albums like
we do.
the Flo Morrissey album. That's a very popular one here.
It was yep. I think I enjoy this album a lot. I'm not gonna knock it because there are very few things that I can call out for. I just think that it was way too long. Way too long.
Intended for it to be listened like one disc, like 1/3.
Well, I chugged through all 3 last night.
I took some breaks, I have to tell you. So I just want to talk about 2 songs in particular that were my absolute favourites that you did not mention because we obviously have different favourites. Braggin'. Oh my god, I love that song. It's the first track of disc 2, and this is such an uplifting pick-me-up because so many of these songs are such downers, they're so depressing and sad that Braggin' is so cool. It seems to blur the lines between an old 50s rock and roll traditional pop song. The guitar line is so flashy and cool. And Bob sounds alive on this track. Well, he's technically alive on all of them because he's not dead,
I
but
hope he's alive.
but he's so upbeat and positive that I really like it. And since it's the first track of disc 2, it makes me think, oh, this is going to be the upbeat disc, and it's not, because the next track is As Time Goes By, which is a very slow, depressing song. Like is the end of disc 2. There's a flaw in my flu, which I don't. Flu. He must have been a flute, right?
I don't know if I googled it. I don't know what a flute is.
Yeah, because if there's a flaw in your flu, like you've got the flu, then that's good because then you don't have the flu.
Wait,
or
no, hold on.
flute.
A flue is a duct for smoke and waste gas produced by a fire, gas heater, or power station.
I don't think he's talking about that.
That's what it is. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, if there's a flaw in his flu, I think he needs some more maintenance control.
Bobby, you gotta get that
Anyway.
checked out. Come on, Bobby.
Come on, Bob. I know you're writing, but you need to keep up on your business management. Okay, so I thought this had some quite striking lyrics and strong atmosphere and melodies, and his vocals really sound good here. I swear he recaptures some level of his youthful voice in this song, and that's inspiring to me. So yeah, like day in day out is similar to Bragging, similar swinning kick. Like a lot of this is swing music because it swings along. Wahey.
I want Bobby to sing me sappy love songs all day. I think I'd enjoy that.
He's done that here, hasn't he?
Yeah, I like song like But Beautiful. I was very I don't know.
Well, Why Was I Born? Oh God, that was the last song, and that is such a morbidly depressing song that there's even like some humor in it, like why was I born? He's singing like that, and he's like 75. It's like it's really depressing to hear that in a way.
Especially now, he's old and
Well, if he did it when he was 20, it'd be like funny, but depressing to hear that. And all of these songs are really depressing. That's what I wrote in my overall notes. All like, I'd say 5, 6 of this are such downers, even if they're really good, and in essence only still have some positive lyrics. Just the way the band plays them has such a sad atmosphere that they become downers, even if they're good quality.
yeah, but they were such, it was so well written. Well, written was not his job, but
By dead people in the 50s, I'm sure,
But
but
they were
yeah,
so-
well written.
well performed by him.
Yeah.
And he put a lot of emotion behind it, and that's what I think that really just stood out to me.
Yeah.
So what was
It's-
so what was your rate, Alex?
Yeah, bear in mind I've heard this twice before and in much smaller doses. I'm gonna give it a 6, which might seem low, but winners to me, like I've said, and only 2 songs are like gonna enter my personal Bob Dylan canon, like of great Bob Dylan tracks I'm gonna cherish forever, which is almost all of the rest of his albums. Only 2 out of 30 here. Bragging and There's a Flaw in My Flu. It's good quality. I'm not going to doubt the integrity he had here. He wants to bring these songs back into relevancy. And the band, you know, we haven't even mentioned that the guitar playing is like really sunny and melodic the whole way through. Like even had a surf rock feel in a way. I thought this was solid, but slightly too long, and I think he needed more upbeat songs, in my opinion, like to balance it out.
Yeah, I agree with you there that they needed a little bit more balance, which is one of the reasons why I didn't enjoy it as much. I think the length was a bit kind of monstrous. It was kind of like intimidating going into it.
Yeah.
And there are some songs where where his vocals didn't match the song, and like I understand what he tried to do, it just didn't match what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna complain. It was a good album. I enjoyed it. 6.5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, well, but I know actually a lot of Bob Dylan fans aren't giving it a go because they're prejudiced against it just by the idea of more of the same. Wow, I mean, that's not what we should be thinking to do.
So, if that's it, then thanks for tuning in to Busted Speakers. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Check out some of our other videos and check us out on social media.